That's right. You're hearing it here first, or second, or, well, I think pretty much every channel has already covered the subject. But DC Comics has now single-handedly saved the future of the comic book industry by canceling their contract with Diamond Distributors. Now, if you're a relatively new comic book fan, or if you're someone who's just never looked into any of the behind the scenes, you just got to go to your comic shop and pick whatever there, let me give you a little background. For decades, comic books were only sold at newsstands. Eventually, what we would end up calling the direct market, which is comic book specialty and hobby shops, formed and allowed for small independent creators to have a place in the market alongside publishers like Marvel and DC. I don't know how far back the direct market goes, but I do know the direct market basically hit its boom by the 1980s. In the 1990s, after the comic book market crash, there's already a shift to more comic books being sold in the direct market, that is, comic book stores, and less on the newsstand. There were at the time, I think, 4 major distributors, or I'm not exactly sure, 3, 4, something like that. But one of them decided to get ahead in the industry by signing exclusive contracts with DC and Marvel and pretty much any publisher who would. And that distributor, of course, was Diamond Distributors. Without the ability to order Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, or pretty much anything else that people have heard of from any other distributor, all the other distributors basically folded and Diamond had monopoly. And this was effective sometime in the mid to late 90s. I know by 1998 it was in effect. I remember that for sure. I just can't remember how many years before that it actually became an official monopoly, or I should say unofficial, because the federal government would not categorize it as a monopoly, but practically, they took over the industry. The result of this has been one of the key, if not the key factor to the gradual decline of the comic book industry over the last 2 decades. Some people like to blame this decline in the industry mostly on the major publishers as far as directions they've taken, and they're definitely not without their own guilt. There is, I will admit, not necessarily just one key thing that's caused the decline of the industry, but it really did start with this Diamond monopoly. With Diamond's monopoly, comic books disappeared from the newsstands in the North America area. There were some minor exceptions to this. A couple of bookstores carried comics, and Hastings was actually a big comic carrier for a number of years, and Hastings was probably the #1 comic book carrier that was not a comic book store, you might say, but they went out of business in the early 2010s. And of course, bookstores have just been folding like dominoes across the country the last 20 years. So without the ability to buy comic books except from the comic book stores, really narrowed the market for bringing in new readers, which of course was complicated a great deal by the fact that, the changes in technology, the younger generations were less interested in magazines and physical media and were more into digital media. But you just ramped that problem up by taking the comic books away from places that they normally might find them, thus giving them a little choice, but just to stick to the digital world. In addition to that, Diamond shifted all the risk in the comic book industry to the stores. Now, comic book retail direct market stores are pretty much unanimously what would qualify as small businesses. And small businesses are, by their nature, more vulnerable to risk. So taking all the risk away from these multi-million-dollar companies like Marvel, DC, and yes, even Diamond themselves, and shifting it to these small mom-and-pop businesses was causing shops to fold at a regular rate. And then compounding to all of that, you have, of course, what inevitably happens with any monopoly. They didn't have to worry about publishers or stores going to their competition. They could basically just treat the industry however they wanted to. So customer service experiences, whether you were a publisher, whether you retail store, were horrible. They delivered product unreliably. They often would deliver damaged product. They'd be slow on dealing with reorders, and just basically universally, pretty much anyone who ever had to dealing with them just said you just really got a bad customer service experience. And this is definitely not a way to grow any industry. You take all the problems that Diamond's monopoly put on the comic book market, and of course then you put other factors on there like, companies like Marvel and DC just flooding the shelves of things that people didn't want, drop in overall writing quality in many of the publishers, the competition with the digital media, and just, trying to make comic books relevant in the 21st century. And the market was just toast. It was eventually just going to inevitably fall apart. And when Diamond decided to shut the entire industry down over the COVID virus this year, they almost did exactly that. They almost collapsed the entire comic book industry in just a matter of weeks. DC Comics, from what I hear, was not really happy with Diamond for a while anyway, but after the COVID situation and their shutdown, DC had enough. They have for the last at least month, if not a little more, been working with other distributors. But as of June the 5th, DC has announced that they were going to no longer do business with Diamond, which means for the first time in over 20 years, the Diamond monopoly really has been broken up. The comic book industry is in such a state that as a retailer, you cannot function without the big two. Unless your store is going to depend on something like games or other collectibles that are popular in your area, then to make money at selling comics, you have to have Marvel and DC. So if DC is going to leave, comic book retailers are now going to have to start dealing with another distributor. I don't know the nature of the contracts that Marvel, Image, and other publishers have with Diamond, but DC has set the precedent. So now that we're going to have at least two, if not more, distributors handling comic books, that does set Marvel up and other companies for eventually making a break with Diamond. I've been a firm believer that the comic book industry did not have a future unless a couple of key things changed, and the first thing on that list was for the Diamond monopoly to be broken up. Now that's happened, we can look forward to there being some growth in the industry. Now, short term, we still got to deal with the virus and the pandemic. And I know a lot of retailers are very unhappy with DC. I think some retailers are going to try to stick with Diamond loyalists and maybe just not carry DC books. So I think like the short term, we're going to see a lot more problems and not going to be happy days in the industry. But again, with the monopoly now broken up, we can look forward to a new future, a new growth, more competition, allowing capitalism to do what it's supposed to be doing and not live under the rule of a single distributor. Anyway, that's all I have for this. I'll probably have a lot more to say in future videos, but I just kind of want to put this out there. I'm sorry I haven't posted any videos this last week or so that, with everything that's going on right now, I didn't feel it was a good time to be out there posting humorous and videos about comics and movies and making complaints about, the industry and things like that we usually do here in this channel. I just thought maybe it was appropriate to take a break for a bit. But don't worry, the channel's not dead, and I will have more videos in the future. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.